Good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday, April 17th, and this is the meeting of the Environmental Advisory Council. Call to order. Roll call. Jenna Cravanis.
Here.
Cindy Mahalo. Here. David Galush.
Here.
Joseph Pinto. Joseph cannot be with us this evening. He's sick and on the mend, and we're wishing him all the best. All right. Moment of silence and pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item number 4.1, agenda, considering approving the agenda. Motion was made by David Bush to accept the agenda as it is, seconded by Janica Bennett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion stands. Item number 5, public comment for agenda items only. Seeing there's no one in the public, I think we're okay with that. Item number 6, considering the improvement in the minutes from our March 20th EAC meeting. Motion was made by Cindy Mahalo, seconded by David Galush. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Item number 7.1, discussion of 4605 Westchester Pike Indoor Recreation at Marvel. So this is great. We have a brand new application for a land development that's before us. So this is, I'm gonna give you a quick rundown. Tim, can you please pull up the set plans? The landscape plans?
Item 7.1.
No,
No.
landscape.
The next one down.
Yeah, plans, yeah.
Yep.
All right, let me just give you a quick rundown. This is a 2.5 acre property that is located in the joyful indoor recreation at Marville, which will be part of the Marville Shopping Center, the area that we've dealt with for three other properties. So we should be a little bit familiar with. This will be right above the logistics center. So a couple things. The property is listed as 50, on one form it says 50 acres and the other one says 55. But in all actuality, this particular property is just 2.5 acres. So we want to look at what they're offering, which will be an indoor pickleball facility and racket and a tennis facility. And we roughly estimate, I haven't seen the exact number of the number of indoor courts, but they're planning obviously shower facilities, 79 parking spots, which will be 3 ADA compliance, and an area right above that, which has been left not in any way noted as grass or whatever, but we'll see what that is. So let's dig into the plans and see if this particular property is interesting, because if you recall back in the fall, we did look at a separate conditional use application for this particular property. And if you recall at that time, it was just an outdoor facility, and they, with the intention eventually, when that property was reviewed by us, we gave our comments, and actually the township did also review it. And if you note, Andy and the zoning did do a rather detailed concerns about that in terms of the plans. They were really kind of inadequate. There was no landscaping buffer plans. There was the fire and utilities were not mentioned. Sidewalk curbings were not detailed. Stormwater facilities were not mentioned. So the plan was just kind of sitting there. It never moved forward. And if you know, we've been asking all along, what happened to this plan? What happened to this plan? And it came back. So this is in essence a new plan. And it started on March 27th.
And Sheila, I think it was also a new applicant name on the plan.
Yes.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
The original applicant was an individual, and this actually is a new company called Newtown Square Racket Club.
LLC.
Yes,
right?
it was LLC. And so this is interesting. Well, so it's great. It meets the needs and it's recreational use and stuff.
Yeah.
The LLC was incorporated in February 21st of 2025. So we are looking at this as if it was in fact a new full application. What's really cool is, for the first time, I am so thrilled with this developer. Guess what they have done? they have actually given us a permeable surface. This is the first time they've ever,
Yes.
and we're delighted for a portion. So we have to be grateful for the little movement we got, but that was a really, I'm happy. It's because finally,
Yeah, it's nice to see that technique being used because it is an
We've been-
emerging technology and
permeable, yeah.
it's a creative way to help meet the stormwater management.
And so we want to really acknowledge that because that was it. So a couple things, this particular building is 24,576 square foot. One thing I was concerned, and I'm going to let every one of you speak, is when all of the calculations, and this is for stormwater and all that, they're looking at the total property, the 50 acres or the 55 acres. But we're looking at it, this is actually only 2.5 acres of property. The level of disturbance they refer to is roughly 3 acres. So from a calculations standpoint, especially stormwater, I'm concerned if they're using the bigger number to bring down the percentages that would be applicable in terms of things that they are compliant with. So that was
Yeah.
something I would think we really
And-
definitely need to note.
And Sheila, to that point, I was wondering, Steve, when we'll see the engineer's review of this? Because the engineer always does a deep dive into the stormwater management. And I think that's something that they would probably also note.
Yeah, so I believe this is on the planning commission's agenda for next week.
Yeah, I couldn't find plannings yet. It's not out
Yeah,
yet.
so
Yeah.
well, I just saw it
Oh, perfect.
yesterday
Okay, perfect.
as first review. And so I believe this was the one that's on there. So I would anticipate that the engineer's review might be by next week. I happen to know our engineer's out of town.
Oh.
So I don't know that that will actually be the case. I mean, it was a pretty short window from that point to this point when it was submitted to, when they got the plan and when they started to review. But I would think if he gets that done, it would be, the first blush would probably be next week. I would think sometime Wednesday, maybe even Thursday before. that.
So then the planning commission will just get it like barely in the nick of time.
Barely in the
before their
nick of time, which
Yeah.
makes me anticipate that it'll be before the planning commission probably at least 2 times.
meeting. Okay,
So to bring
well,
up-
But
And-
I'm not
No,
saying
no.
that for sure.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
because I'm trying to think about if we are going to submit a comment letter on this, the timing of when
Yeah.
it might need to be done and traditionally, to get it to the planning commission for their next Thursday meeting, we would get it into the office by noon tomorrow.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I guess what we're looking at is here, this is the 79 parking spots, right?
Yep.
This is the area that they're proposing, the indoor courts with the shower facilities and all of the other things. And this area over here is not labeled as anything. There's no markings of trees or anything. On the landscaping plan, and I think, is that page 15 or 21?
like
Go down to
21, 19,
We're looking for the landscaping plan.
it's kind of on 2 different pages.
Steve, we are concerned because nothing is in that area.
Mhm.
And majority of the property, I mean, if you look at the property without including that piece,
Page
it's already
18.
totally
Yeah.
covered. So you've got impervious surface, everything else. So what is the plans with this portion of the property? Because it's just left like nothing. There's no trees. 'Cause we looked
Yeah,
here.
the only thing on that area, Sheila, I also found it confusing because that doesn't really speak to that, is when you look
Closely at the landscaping plan, they fulfill their shrub requirement to large extent with a buffer planting all along the very right
Yes.
most, which is kind of the east.
Here. And then what's interesting to know too, is they went outside of the scope of this particular property, and they put a majority of their buffering, of their planting outside into the riparian buffer. So if you look this large square, that is what the 2.5 acres in, but yet they're using the area outside to address their count of the trees. So we just want to make sure.
Yeah,
that-
Steve, I had a question about that. Are they allowed to plant in the riparian buffer? Like, it just seemed a little odd to me that, they have plantings there.
Well, I mean, we do allow planting in a riparian buffer, and in fact, I think there's some positive benefits of doing that. I don't know is, can they do that and count that towards their number? That I don't know.
Right, that's what,
Because that was a
And-
question we had, yeah.
But again, so the challenge, as with any of these projects, right, is you're dealing with a developer who's coming in with a portion of a much bigger project. The good news is there's nothing that can happen in the area that's the riparian buffer in regards to, like, he can't take away from that to apply it to, like, if he plants there, he's not gonna be able to take those trees down and put something else there, because we're not gonna let him
Right.
build in the riparian
exactly,
buffer.
right.
The piece that I don't know, I think the name on the application is different. My anticipation, my thought is that it's probably the same person. They've just created a business.
Yeah,
To
it's
do this?
Newtown Square Racquet and Fitness Club, which was established as an LLC on February 21st, 2025.
Right. So
Right.
my guess is it's all the same person.
Well, the original application was submitted, and you have to go back to the big story on this. So, and this is something obviously we would defer to the township. The EAC is looking at, right now, these plans are showing a 50-foot riparian buffer. And if you look back at what the supervisors have done, the supervisors decided in September of 2024, they made the determination that they were going to improve chapter 143. In October 14th of 2024, the supervisors gave notice and actually signed and it put into codified that effort. This particular developer was aware that this is the developer, not this individual, it's the applicant here, was aware of these changes that were coming because they were dealing with those same things in the logistics center. So they became aware about that in August because of logistics center. The supervisors took notice of that in September, gave notice, public notice, incorporated on October 14th. This applicant hand delivered the application on October 18th. The question is, they had every right to, because they were holding the door open for their plans. However, it was a conditional use application, which they submitted. And when they went through the process and they began that, they started to quickly realize after the EAC and Andy's letter that this plan was going nowhere. So they chose to not act or do anything, and they pulled back.
Well, I think, I'm not sure that they said it was going nowhere. I think they took and felt that, I mean, my I think that you're maybe reading more into it, because I think what they decided was the path of least resistance was to start with the indoor versus to start with the outdoor. I think that what became the issue is they thought they were going to be able to put up porta potties. And we said, you're not going to be able to put up porta potties as the option for bathroom.
premier
And even
township.
if they were nice porta potties, we
Yeah,
said,
even for a premier township, that would not be acceptable.
well, it's not even just that. It's a permanent,
Yes,
it's a permanent addition. Like, it's not a 2-week event. It's not
Yes.
so we said, that's not what we're going to allow. I mean, we don't even think the code allows that. I mean, like, there was all kinds of issues. I think when we said that they had to do permanent bathrooms, they started looking and said, if we have to do all of that, it's actually easier to build the indoor space first. And then it is to build the outdoor space.
so are there plans to build outdoor courts here? Because that's what the
okay.
measurements look like,
So here's what I would tell you. The fact that space is open,
right?
the fact that space has
Square
shapes-
rectangular shape that looks like,
I mean, do I anticipate that they're gonna come back in for a conditional use hearing for outdoor space at some point? I do. So I mean, I just, like, I think it's the same applicant. I think it's under a different name. I think they've, these applicants do this all the time. They go
Right.
out and they create these LLCs because there's a
they have to
benefit
protect
for them,
themselves, right?
and so they do that. So that, and, look, that's.
But how, I guess the question is, the EAC is looking at this, we should be encouraging them to enact the 100-foot riparian buffer. And although they might have had the 50-foot under their protection from the previous one, which was a conditional use, This is a new application, and the application that they submitted in October, and again, we're not lawyers, and of course, as the supervisors make these decisions, the township lawyer, we are just giving concern and input.
Yep.
That they held the door open, but yet that was going nowhere. So although they wanted to take advantage of that opportunity, they have missed that opportunity because the new application, the application that they submitted in October did not have escrow, did not have anything from the municipal authority. It was not a complete application in terms of all of those ingredients. So it was 171 days later from the original application that they submitted this one on March 27th. They did not submit their municipal authority check till March 28th. So in essence, I believe like a complete application is a complete application. And of course,
Well,
the 27th to 28th, to me, it's all the same, whatever. But what we're looking at is
Is
Fine.
this a new application and
Yeah.
should they be complied?
And I think that's a reasonable comment for you to make. We believe this is a new application and therefore should be subject to the 100
Right.
riparian buffer. Now, there may be legal standing that
And
they
they-
have that says that's not, and that's for,
Right.
that's for the lawyers to figure out. I'm not gonna draw a conclusion on that one
Right.
way or the other.
But I think for us, we can at least bring that to it, because, and I'll tell you why. There's a couple things. When we look at the stormwater. Okay, so remember too, this particular property removed all the trees. So there are no trees that are being condemned. So there's no replacement trees that have to be provided either, because those trees were removed decades ago. In addition, the soil that's on.
You're not at a mic, so I need you to do that.
The soil that's on this property was trucked in. I actually know some of the truckers who brought in this soil and then man-made created steep slopes and very steep slopes were created on this. So although we do see on here, you'll see this is an incline. This is Westchester Pike up here. And remember, this is all flowing downhill. The water, there will be a potential property up here that's coming, right? So all the water from Westchester Pike will be dealt with hopefully on this potential property that's coming. Now, on this particular property, we're assuming that if the way it is right now, you've got, this is all impervious. This portion right here, which is the permeable, which is thank God. This is their structure here. And this particular structure, we don't even know what it is, and we can't assume because we don't know what the facts are. But the stormwater is coming in and they are building an infiltration center right here. Now, remember, when we dealt with this property over here, there was a great concern about this wall, which was a huge wall that was trying to hold the wall structure in for boron. So we're bringing water down here into an infiltration bed near a wall that we're creating, right? Which is one thing. The second thing is the flow of water that's coming in here is lovely. However, this starts at 300, this goes down to 280. The flow from here goes into the permeable surfaces, which sounds lovely too. However, when you look at the riparian buffer, if you're really looking at a 50-foot riparian buffer, you look at a 100-foot riparian buffer, you're in the area of the riparian buffer of 100 foot where you're putting in your permeable surfaces. In essence, that's asking a sponge to hold more water, which is not possible. In addition, the water that's coming down here, and this is an angle, this drops from 300 down into the valley, which is, there's nothing dealing here. This is a pad where you're putting electrical equipment and the substation here, which will be another area of concern. So that's all in the area. And why this whole area is of concern is last year, we dealt with the parking lot, we dealt with 14 Phillips, we dealt with this whole area, and the residents came to our meetings showing pictures of their houses being flooded out. This tributary goes into Reese's Run, which continues into Crum Creek. So,
As, I'm gonna have to write this
Yep.
letter.
yes,
So how would you summarize that point?
it's a 100-foot riparian buffer.
Okay.
We did also
Got that.
request that NPDES permit be applicable and not to have this other one. Just as a notation to the applicant, not for this particular property, but for any future properties, to put them on notice that the wetlands redelineation, the previous report was done 20 years ago, but the redelineation was done in September 2019. And we are past the 5 years. So although we're okay right now, because we're like 5 years and 6 months,
Yeah.
the clock is ticking, and our new engineer has said that he's following best management practices,
Right.
and he's only accepting a 5-year
Right.
So,
Yeah,
that's-
I looked at that also.
yeah,
and-
that's just something for
And
us
they
to know.
did update several of their soil studies and some of the other things, so that was good to see.
Right,
I do have some comments on. the
Yes, let me
landscape
just
plan
add-
That I'd like to
yeah,
make in a minute.
sure. Why don't you do that? I just wanted to add one
Okay.
more thing.
Well, I think the other large point was, how they're computing the requirements on this. All,
Yes.
on the 3 acres.
2.5 acres.
Yeah, the
Yes.
2.5 acres. Are they
Okay,
using
so
the larger-
I'll
Yeah.
add that as a
Yes.
point, the 2.5 versus
And then
50 acres.
the other point was that the there was no bike racks.
Yeah,
And the other point was that the 79 cars is using the old the old methodology, which was based on before shared driving services, and a lot has changed. Have they thought about local people coming in there, and will that number
Yeah.
be reflective of all that? And
Yeah.
in addition, the bigger point was, we're not seeing what this total plan is, and although they don't have to share everything with us, I think what we're looking at, Steve, is it doesn't give the supervisors an opportunity to talk with the developer and to ask them what they can do in terms of how does the community benefit from this experience too.
yeah.
Maybe they can provide a walking trail, maybe a dog park, maybe something that would be helpful to the township residents, because this is going to be adding to our traffic. There is going to be, R5 is surrounding this property, so, I mean, I'm assuming residential. The person up on Phillips Lane, remember we were talking about? You're coming in at 300-point elevation. Will you put those outdoor courts? Bing, bing, you're gonna have. That's how
So you're
close.
concerned about sound
Sound?
pollution?
Yep.
Okay, I'll add that
Well,
also.
but again, so I think you need to stay focused for this, what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't, I mean, I think if, I think if it's an indoor
Yeah. sound, you're right,
recreation
sound.
center,
Yeah,
I mean, you can talk about parking lights, you can
Yeah.
talk about those kind of things. But I think to go in and make an assumption
Yeah, we can't.
that based on what I said,
I
I would think
retract
that would.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Sheila,
You please-
I'm not gonna say anything about the sound pollution. I also, Steve, had some questions about the formula that the applicant used to come up with the 79 cars. I did some research on the required and recommended size of a pickleball court. I went to the National Pickleball Association and looked at that. And the best I could calculate is that maybe there would be 9 indoor courts. And tried to think of, would 79 spots be relevant for that? And not knowing what's going on inside the facility, it's hard for us to assess, is that a reasonable number of parking spaces? And then also not knowing what the applicant is thinking of for the vacant right-hand side of the property. If the applicant has long-range plans for perhaps putting in outdoor courts there, then that would increase the need for parking, and then maybe the 79 spaces is a relevant amount, but not having the data on the inside of the property, that makes it difficult. I wanted
So,
to,
and just, if you don't mind me interjecting a moment, since you're talking about parking, it may be that your recommendation would be that if the intent is to do something in the future outside, and that's the reason why they're doing that, could they consider today only doing the parking that's needed
Right.
for the inside, so that we only have that amount of impervious as part of the parking?
Right.
I mean, I think
Yeah,
that if you're looking at it from a
Because-
environmental benefit, that's how I would approach it.
yeah,
But
and I
since the
know
whole
that
property
you've done
has
that
the
before.
entire area to be permeable versus just that one section.
Well, that might be constrained by the soil underneath. I would leave that to the
Okay.
engineers. I think it's good that they have permeable, and they probably have very legitimate reasons for why they put the infiltration basin farther away from the stream and the permeable pavement closer to the riparian buffer. And I would expect the township engineer to comment on that.
So I'd like to see lighting addressed.
Absolutely.
Because,
What did you
uh,
see about
to
that, Janet?
Bird-friendly lighting. We looked at a picture of the lighting fixture that they were proposing to use, but we couldn't tell how many Kelvins they were proposing. And we here, we're fortunate to pass a lights out proclamation that supports bird-friendly Yes, friendly birds, especially during the migration season, but really at any time of the year. And we certainly don't want the neighbors who are around to have flooded by light all night long because they haven't been able to install something that'll lower the lighting and within those Calvins. So I think it's important that they really show us exactly what
Yeah.
the
Okay.
number of Calvins would be.
Yeah, I'll include that. I know that the lighting resolution that the township passed addresses the structure of the light, that it goes
Go down, yeah, that's
downward,
right.
and from the product sheet in the plan, it looked like the light does do that. It didn't really indicate the amount of kelvins or the color of light. Those are two other factors that, you know,
Right,
are
can they bring it
important.
down at night? You know, we
Yeah,
ride some.
and
past-
can they put them on timers? So those are all things that
And-
I
Yeah.
can mention in the comment
The
letter.
logistics center is adding type of bird-friendly markings for the windows. We could ask them to
Are
consider.
they doing that?
Yes,
Are they using the dots, bird-friendly dots?
they didn't, we asked them to do it and they are doing the kinds, they're not required to do that. It's
Yes.
because they're good citizens that are choosing to do that. But yes, they're choosing to do that.
So
that-
right before I came to this meeting, I sat in on a webinar about bird-friendly dots or they coping cords. And
Okay,
they said that it adds about 1% to the cost of construction to add the bird-friendly glass before
yes,
the construction is done or while it is being constructed.
it's a film
Rather
inside of
than
it, yes.
doing it later.
Yes.
It has to be on the outside, by the way. It has to be on the outside. The
Okay.
film
Okay.
does.
Well, that's
Otherwise,
good to
the
know.
birds
It's so
don't know.
economical.
We can just
and it's
ask
still
them.
effective.
We could
Right.
ask them.
So on the landscaping plan, it was nice to see, you know, a mixture of deciduous, evergreen trees and shrubs. I did notice that the applicant requested 3 waivers related to,
yeah.
being excused from providing the full number of landscape trees required in section 104, 14A, 14B, and 14C and D. So there, I believe what we could do is ask that the applicant provide a fee in lieu. I think that that's a process that the township has used before, so we could request that. I'd also like to make a couple suggestions related to the species. I studied the species list and there are no invasive species, thank goodness. I might make a couple suggestions of trees and shrubs that provide a little more habitat value. I know it's tough there because there's probably a lot of deer pressure in that area. But I would suggest that we could make a couple minor substitutions such as white swamp white oak versus tulip poplar, because that has higher habitat value.
Perfect.
So I would just make
guess-
a couple suggestions there.
The only thing too was Steve had, I guess they don't have to disclose to you, but what would be the hours of operations? And the reason being is we did a little research and I found that within 8 miles of Newtown Square, there's 13 different pickleball courts. Of those, 4 of them, there's 4 opportunities in Newtown Square to play pickleball. Aronimink, obviously, these are members only, St. Albans, which is members only, but there is pickleball at Ellis Athletic Center. And also it was noted that Marple Newtown, they can play free pickleball. So although pickleball,
Where's the one at
the high school.
the Ellis? No.
Ellis, they have a pickleball court at Ellis Athletic Center.
Really?
It's noted on on the research of, when I did the research.
I
of-
think they can convert the inside. Okay.
Yes, they can
They
convert
can
it.
convert the.
But
gym.
the bigger place is really, and this is, we have no business telling any type of business. We're just bringing this attention to where, because just like the timber building that's sitting idle, we don't want something to be developed and then, the fad goes away. We just want to make sure that people are aware of this. But there's that new pickler place that's happening in Broomall, which is less than 3 miles from, this particular,
That's at the
Like this.
corner of Westchester Pike and 320, right?
yes. And
Yeah.
that is what
How
this,
many courts is that one gonna?
that'll
have?
be 15 courts, but what's interesting about that, that's an indoor, outdoor, a pro shop, a league play, a tournament, they have coaching and lockers and showers. But more importantly, they have their hours of operation from 6 AM to 11 PM. But the big issue is that the Pickler is part of an overall organization, which they know how to make these things successful. This, from what I understand, is a one operation location, but the Pickler is part of 475 locations in the USA. So they kind of know what they're doing, which is, in addition, less than 8 miles is the Bounce in Malvern. And that is 16 courts. That's all the amenities, the league play, the pro shop, the parties, and they have both paid members and ever. So although these things are wonderful, we just want to make sure that they've done their research. One thing I think Cindy brought, which was very interesting, is that Springton Racket Club,
Yeah.
which
they
is on
closed
Route two
recently.
fifty-two, closed. And that is a
Hmm.
concern, because here you have a racket club closing very close to Newtown Township,
Yep.
and here, this other one. Now, I do believe this particular application is for racket, so that was paddleball and pickleball. and all. So
And-
we want them to be successful. I think we
So
just want to make sure that they.
I guess my question is, what do you,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I hear you saying all this.
What
Can
is the point?
can you put it down into the bottom line of what you're
What
trying
is
to
the
get to?
point is when they're gonna develop a natural pristine land, we just want to make sure that they've done all the research so that they're successful and that they know what the market conditions are out there, so that way
Okay.
we just don't go building something and, you
Well,
know, the
that
stat has
might-
passed.
Yeah, that might be something that the planning commission
Yes.
could better study or ask, is if they've done.
Yeah,
a
I
market
think
study.
that,
I
I
don't-
mean,
yeah.
you know,
Assume they've done.
I mean, there's they have to have a pretty strong business plan to go and get the funding to go forward and do this. I mean, I'm assuming they're not paying cash for this.
Right.
Maybe they are, but I'm assuming they're not. If you're going to the bank to borrow the money, you've got to have a pretty solid plan, and the bank's gonna make them go through that. I'm not sure, I don't know that that's our role as the township.
We have no role in, what we're just saying is,
I guess my point is, I would like to stay focused on the things
Okay.
that are
And-
environmental, that we can make an
Yeah.
impact
And-
on.
Yeah.
I mean, we
so-
could chase a lot of things on these plans. I'd like to focus on the things that we can make a
Yeah,
difference.
I don't know if you didn't have anything else. I wanted to make one more comment
yes,
on sheet 14, where it talks about the erosion and sediment control notes. It talks about synthetic and plastic landscape mesh, and I know the township is sensitive to that, and we appreciate the township's concern about trying to eliminate that. So I suggest that we include a comment to that effect. And I would anticipate that the township engineer, who is attuned to this issue, would note that, and I would expect his report might also comment on that. Yeah,
what about
so I
Dave,
think-
anything that you have on this? Any points, are you a kind of? Great.
With you guys,
Okay.
nothing outside of that.
Awesome.
Okay, so I think I have a list here of the topics. And if the EAC is okay with that, then I will compile these into a comment letter and get that to the township by noon tomorrow.
So Steve, they can change the plans and go forward and add the outdoor courts at a later time. They'd have to go through conditional use. But at least with a residents who, because remember residents came before about when this court was in outdoor, they were concerned about sound. There was a lot of information. Will they have that opportunity if those?
Yeah,
Okay.
the way the ordinance is written is that indoor, they
Right.
don't need, they can do by right, which means they don't need to do conditional use. We said outdoor because of those very issues,
Yes.
sound, lights, all of those things that impact the neighborhood. We've said that if you do outdoor recreation in this area,
Yes,
and I think we've included a couple other areas as well when we made the change. We specifically made the change to allow indoor by right,
right.
but outdoor had to be with conditional use so that we could control hours of
Hours, yeah,
operation, we
lighting,
could control
Noise.
noise, we could control
Quality of life.
quality of life issues. That was the reason for
Yes.
that, and that's why they can come do this and not have to go through the conditional use process.
Okay.
So if they ever want to come back, I'm not saying they are, the way they've laid out the land, I assume they are.
Yes.
If they want to come back and do outdoor courts, then they would have to then at that point go through the conditional use process, just like they had started
We
before.
recommend that they create a meadow in that grass area now, so when they do, just keep it forever meadow, because they realize how wonderful that meadow will look.
We could, we could mention that.
We could
but,
ask.
You know, it is an expense
I know.
to install and maintain. Steve, I just have one last tangential question before we move on to the next item. And that is, I know that the plans that the EAC got didn't include the information that I'm going to mention, but I'm wondering if the planning commission gets different plans such as the appearance of the building, the height of the building,
It's
how
45
many
feet.
courts inside.
It
like,
did say
I-
45 feet was the max it was going.
Yeah,
to.
I, like, typically, through the planning piece, we don't have a design guideline set up for, like, we don't tell somebody how they have to design their
No,
building.
I'm not saying tell them, but at least to know what it looks like.
Like, I don't think there's anything in the planning process that we decide that part of the process.
Like, you don't even have to know how tall the building is.
Well, no, the
or
tall, I think it is on the plans,
It's
how
like
tall the
that,
building
yes.
is.
The height,
The height of the
construction
building,
technique.
the width of the building,
The front
all of that is on the plan.
Much window.
The
Yeah.
reason I ask that is because, and again, this is beyond the purview of the EAC, but when you look at the township code and it talks about the lifestyle village, and it talks about it being walkable, and hopefully it's an enhancement to the overall community. We now have a logistics center,
Mhm.
which Boron said they're gonna try to make it attractive looking.
Sure.
Well, yeah. it-
But now you have an athletic facility, which is very rectangular. It's probably gonna look like a big box. This, we don't know what it's gonna look like. It is as close to the sidewalk as you can get.
Yep,
And if one of the key aspects of a lifestyle village is that it's supposed to be pedestrian friendly, this is not going to be a very pleasant place for anybody to walk in front of this 45-foot tall building that is right up against the tiny little
Mhm.
sidewalk there. And then you go past a parking lot and a logistics center. And when I was looking at this and thinking about the appearance, I just started thinking, am I gonna feel like I'm in Lawrence Park Industrial Park? Am I gonna feel like I'm back in there? And is that the direction the township really wants to go with this development? And that's not for us here. It's for the planning commission, it's for the board of supervisors,
Mhm.
but
I mean, I think if you're concerned about that as an EAC, that you want to make sure that as part of the environmental feel of the community,
yeah.
you know, I mean, I think you
it-
could mention
You're not
that,
gonna have much green space here.
yeah,
I mean, they have built this out as far as it goes.
Yeah.
And then if and when, so then they have this blank sheet of grass, which provides no habitat value, all the parking, and then they come back in and it maybe eventually put courts in there. What are the limits for developing like the percentages of open space versus green space for a property like this?
I'd have to look it up specifically. It's,
assume
the
it's like-
lifestyle village has a certain requirement. I don't know what it is.
Well, I would hope that the planning commission and the engineer would look at that
Yes.
to make sure that they're not exceeding it, because right now
It's,
it's really built out.
I don't mean to
So that-
belabor this point or thing on this agenda topic. And I know we're not privy to the future plans of what's gonna happen. But, you know, I do work, you know, kind of, in this industry, in the financial industry, and, you know, I build models all day long. I find it hard to believe that if they're leaving that blank, that they're not gonna put courts there, and that the projections of the success of the property, at least partially, they have a case which hinges on those outdoor courts eventually becoming courts.
Yeah.
My question is, how integral to the overall success of the club are the outdoor courts, which they're assuming they will put in, but worst case scenario, they don't get put in. then what happens? I am a little concerned about that. Like, is this viable only if the outdoor courts, which they seem to be very clearly planning on,
Again,
I know
think
that's outside
it's-
our purview. I'm just saying it would be a shame if,
Yeah.
you know, they don't get that and then
I
we
think
sort
everyone
of
wants
have
them to be
a,
successful. I think that's the bottom line. And we just want to make sure that.
Yeah, and again, conditional use doesn't say you can't do something. Conditional use basically says you can do it, but these are the
Yes.
conditions that are placed upon you. So it's, we're not gonna say, no, you can't go in and put outdoor courts. But what we may say is you're limited from 9 in the morning
Morning
till
till
8
5.
at night.
totally
Yes.
totally
So that may
understand.
be the condition.
Yes.
My point
So,
is,
but I think my point that I'm trying to make to you is
yeah,
it- the conditions may be placed upon them. I don't think it keeps them from doing it. Like, I don't think there's anything in our code that we keep them from doing
understand.
outside.
I guess
Okay.
then I would respond with, are the conditions such that the juice is not worth the squeeze? And that's all I'm thinking about.
My-
Worst case,
But my point is,
scenario.
if that is there, right, and then that, if there, you can't stop them with conditional use, then in essence, 100% of this property will have either permeable or impermeable surfaces on it. Because blacktop will be the outdoor courts, the structure, so just like the parking lot.
They might not, they
95%
might
of
not,
it is,
they might not be. I mean, if they do grass courts or they do clay courts, technically it's not 100% impermeable. I mean, there are things they could do. I know we're diving down a
Yeah,
rabbit
okay.
hole.
Yeah,
not meaning to.
again,
I
and I'm
just-
not saying, we're saying
and put the
like,
planting.
there
in
there's
your
still may be
property,
some
not-
requirements that they have to meet for impervious
All right.
piece that they're gonna have to meet. They'll have to still
Right.
meet those.
So we
Okay,
wish
we
them
only
success.
have
So
10
a motion was
minutes left.
made by Cindy Mahalo.
Understand.
Are we going to ask them to not have a waiver for the number of trees that they're supposed to plant?
Well,
Yes.
We need
They-
clarification on that.
They've asked
so.
for a
Yes.
waiver and what I intended to put in the comment letter was the request or the specification that they pay a fee in lieu of. I mentioned that earlier, Steve, isn't that traditionally what
We've
the
done
township
that.
asks?
I mean, there's two different things I'm hearing. You know, one is to say we would recommend denying the request for the waiver, that we would want the trees planted on that property.
Especially
On
for
the
water
property,
control.
not.
Well, I don't know that they can fit them on the property.
Our question then
Well,
is,
but I think the repairing buffer trees are extra.
but see, the question is, okay, this is why we're looking at the bigger picture. If the trees are planted off their 2.5 acres, when they go back and do their calculations for another project that we haven't seen yet, will these trees be counted again, is what I think a lot of us were concerned about. Do you follow me? So the
Well-
2.5 acres, you're moving the trees outside of the 2.5 acres. So when he comes in with project number 5,
Well, then make a note in there that
Yes.
that's your concern.
Double, okay,
we
I'll
just want
add
to make
that.
sure that they're not double dipping on that.
So Steve, a last question. Does the township have a standard formula that it uses for calculating the fee in lieu of when an applicant can't ask for a waiver? or
I
can't?
know that the engineer typically looks at what it costs to plant a tree in the year that the applicant is in. So in other words, I
It's
think
kind of a market rate.
there's a kind of a market rate of what it
Okay.
costs to plant the tree, and they use that as the basis. That's what we've always done. And it's been pretty successful. To say that it's an exact dollar amount, I think last
All right.
time, I want to say it was $800 a
We
tree,
wish
but I
them
don't
luck,
know.
but we've got to get
Okay.
moving on. Okay, so a motion was made by Cindy Mahalo, seconded by Dave Galush, that EAC would draft a comment letter, just giving our recommendations. We know ultimately the Board of Supervisors and the township make the decisions. We are just giving guidance based on the information that we received.
Yeah,
And the notes that we've all discussed with. Anybody have anything else to add to that before we take a vote on that?
No.
Everyone's comfortable? So a motion was made by Cindy, seconded by Dave. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion stands. Thank you. We wish them luck in their endeavors and we want only the best for them. Item number 8, a Birdtown update. And guys, we have to really watch our time here. So the land development took way longer and we started late. Janet, can you give us an
Okay,
update
sure.
on?
Sure. First of all, I wanted to thank the township again for our certification, maintaining our gold certification. And will this, I know I gave you one that's framed, and I noticed
Awesome.
that some of those are in the hallway there, so.
Yeah, I was looking for something for the current year that may be a little bit more visible than just in that one hallway.
Yes.
And so I'm looking at for a place right now
Oh,
that might,
good.
I've asked several folks to kind of help me kind of come up with a spot for
Great.
the current year
Yes.
that it would be out, and then we'll move it in the hallway
Okay,
after.
right.
Yeah, I think the hallway would be awesome. That'd be great.
If
Good.
you have a more visible location, I'll give you the first place blue ribbon and garden award.
Yes.
Sure.
But I don't
Absolutely.
want it
Some of
hidden
those.
in a back hallway.
No.
Sure. No, I understand.
Yeah.
I would like to have a place for the ones that we get within the year
Yes.
that are,
And Steve, another place that's really good from a visual is right behind the speaker, because that's always on the camera over there.
oh,
Because it's always on the camera for all the speakers, which
Right.
kind of gives, because eventually I do understand you're gonna get the seal up here, but it might be a nice little place.
Sealed.
oh, I have a whole different plan for up
Oh,
here.
awesome. All right,
Okay, so-
next,
All right, so
Janet?
the bluebird nesting boxes, Cindy and I have been going around to residents who have applied. We have more people that applied than we have boxes for, but we had a total of 16 boxes. I went out to Home Depot to get rebarb and conduits, and so I've learned a whole new skill.
wonderful.
And thanks to the township's pole pounder, we've been able to put these bird boxes up rather easily. We're going to maintain contact with our adopters and just tell what happened with our very
Oh my
first
God, tell
box.
us.
Yeah, we have a couple positive things to share. Our first bluebird box that we dropped off, within one day, the homeowner sent us a photo of a bluebird on
Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
within one day, and that's one of our neighbors, Steve.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, yes.
Nesting already.
Two other positive things is the people were so excited, so appreciative of getting these bluebird boxes. They wanted their kids to get involved. They were very excited. And the third thing, Steve, is I wanted to pass along a compliment, because one of the women unsolicited said how much she enjoys the township e-newsletter,
Oh,
Yes.
good.
and that she really appreciates all the environmental news. And I'm like, what? She goes, oh yeah, there's so many great articles. I'm like, well.
I'll take credit for that.
Yeah, that's great.
Taking credit.
Yeah.
You're trying to
But,
letter.
but she, like I said, she unsolicited commented that she
That's
really
awesome.
appreciates all that information.
That is awesome. Good stuff.
Right.
And
Anything
first of
else,
all,
Janet?
I want to really give a
So
shout out.
there's just
Before we, I want
three
to, this is
boxes
important that we take the time to notice that how much time this has taken
Oh,
for
yes.
Cindy and Janet
Oh,
to
yeah.
go out to deal this. Not only are they taking care of the birds or taking care of the environment, they're providing educational opportunities, and it's really a lot of and it's a lot of extra work. So we really
It is,
appreciate that.
it is.
Okay, sorry to
No,
interrupt
no,
you.
no, that's okay. And so we're hoping we'll get pictures that we can put up on
Social
our
media, yes.
Our e-newsletter about what's happening in those boxes. Then lights out, we're just again reinforcing that for this season. And
Tonight, 1.5 million birds are moving through tonight
Okay,
alone, and there's
amazing.
there's actually a daily migration that shows you. And through the weekend, it's going to go up to 2.5 million. It's incredible.
Yes, right. So another thing we did with all of our adopters was to introduce them to Merlin.
Yes.
If they didn't know Merlin, so they were able to listen to what the
identification.
birds were that are in their yard. And one family, we could not put the nest in or the box in because they had either not enough open space. He was very disappointed, but we wanted to
She
make
had
sure.
house wrens and house sparrows, which are predators of bluebirds, and would have probably killed them.
Get them. Oh,
Right,
God.
yes,
yeah.
'cause what we've learned from the workshop that was done for Birdtown leaders was that the wrens, for example, will just poke holes in the egg.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
All right.
Kill even the adults. So I wanted to mention also the bird walk. And I think we're going to have 60 people attending the bird walk. So we do have two leaders, Mike McGraw, and then I've also ask the vice president of Birdtown, Pennsylvania, if he will lead
Awesome.
also. And finally, not on here is the plant swap giveaway that we are coordinating with the Horticultural Society.
Oh, I have that later in the,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
all right,
I'll
great.
leave it.
All right, so
Okay.
that's awesome. I'm gonna give you first of all, Janet, thank you for everything on that, but
Yes.
8.2 rain gardens update. Before
Yep.
Cindy goes in a little bit detail, the township, we just sent in some pictures, Steve, and we asked to show some of the rain garden volunteers, so hopefully they'll post that. That's awesome. Again, it's National Volunteer Month, and we take the time to appreciate all the volunteers, not only you EAC members, but so many people, and it's important that we acknowledge them because this is all a labor of love for all of us and the people that we bring into it. So Cindy, good job, and give us an update on the rain gardens.
Yeah, our volunteers have been busy working in both rain gardens, spreading mulch, cutting back the stalks, which we left standing to provide cover for the insects during the cold winter months. We've been pulling weeds. We've had a couple new volunteers. We had one Italian au pair who came and helped us, and then she brought her employer who helped us, and we have a community service volunteer, so that's great. They're in good shape. Regarding the DCC mini grant, I have not heard back from them. I will let you know when I do.
Perfect. All right. And anything else, we can go into the item 8.3, the CRC and the DCVA stream cleanup. The stream cleanups at Drexel Lodge, Greer, and Brookside Parks were completed. It was another successful event, thanks of course to the Newtown Township Parks and Rec, the Newtown Township Public Works, EAC, everyone working together. We got great news from Drexel Lodge because everyone has done such a great job that we're going to go on an every other year cycle. And the same thing with Greer Park and Brookside because we've done it. Not only did everyone take the time to go and do all this, actually some supervisors and we went up and did street cleaning along because that contributed to it. So you had Mike Russo, Tina Lightstrap, and Leonard picking up the trash that is along the Pico facilities in the back, junk and stuff. So that's really important because it's important that we show the community why we need to take care of our streams. So we're going to continue that.
Just in terms of volunteer recognition, somebody made a very smart suggestion, which is while we had lots of volunteers over at Drexel Lodge, because there wasn't as much litter, we diverted some of the volunteers to help maintain the pollinator garden there, which typically in the past we've done as a separate event. But we had manpower there, woman power there, scout power, and we got a lot done. And it was very gratifying to get that done.
But I think
And
those-
to see how many people came from outside of Newtown Township.
one thing we needed to do is make sure that Newtown Square in Bloom notifies Public Works, just so that George was aware of it, because I think he was a little surprised.
Yeah.
And we never want George to be surprised with things like that. So
So
awesome.
did anyone take a total of the number of people who volunteered? Because this kind of thing adds to our certification for what
We
we've
can
done within
get
our
that from
community.
Wade Pollock,
CRC.
because Wade,
They had a sign up at both
Yes,
places,
they
so they should.
yeah. we'll get that.
I would make note that one of the recommendations that was made was that we would split which year.
Yes.
So that we would do one year and one the other, so
Yes.
that we would still have a yearly
event.
event, but that we would focus the 1 year odd, 1 year even in those areas.
Awesome. That's good stuff. All right, we'll get that information to you and we can
Thank
check with
you.
Wade Pollock. Okay. Item 8.4, update and discussion on road salt management. Cindy, you're just going to give us a quick overview on that?
The amount of salt that is in our streams is a topic that I've been hearing about more and more at the continuing education courses I take and the watershed presentations. It was mentioned by a speaker from the Willistown Conservation Trust Water Management Program at the recent DCVA annual meeting. And I've been looking into this a bit, and in addition to my own observation of excess salt after snowstorms in local parking lots. I just wanted to note that I've learned that the DEP is developing HB 664, which is a piece of legislation at the state level, which was just proposed first in late March, that would develop road salt management, best management practices, guidelines, and make these available to municipalities and state agencies. So I think that's a positive development we will continue to track. And I wanted to let residents know, winter is behind us, but we'll remind you again next fall that they can learn about the impact of road salt on drinking water quality at the Stroud Water Research Center, which is a nationally recognized facility, which is right here in the Westchester area. They are very highly regarded and they do a lot of research and education on road salt. And just one last thing is, unfortunately, there is so much salt that has gotten into the soil that now, even after summer rainstorms, the monitoring that Willistown Conservation Trust is doing indicates that salt levels increase even in the summer months because the salt gets into the soil and doesn't go away. And we've had local residents in Ellis Preserve taste the salt in their water this past winter after storms. So it is a concern that we're going to be tracking.
So I think a lot of that direction is coming from DCVA, CRC, and all of our
Oh.
watersheds partners that we deal with, in addition to,
Oh, yeah, they're all working on this.
Yes.
We're just trying to
I think,
stay aware of
yeah.
what's going on.
I think it's
and
just going to
then
bring
be
information
a
to the township
resource.
and also to try to be aware of this because this is the non-salt times. I used to cover the state of Massachusetts, so salt was not allowed in certain areas like near Walden Pond and things. They would use alternatives because they were so aware of what is. Remember, our bodies are mostly made of water, so the best we can do to take care of water is always an important matter. Item 8.5 is the Darby and Cobbs Creek Community Water Quality Reports. Remember, the Darby Creek and Cobbs Creek have formed a science monitoring program. Cindy, you want to give us a little update on that?
Yeah, this is run again by Willistown Conservation Trust, their water monitoring program. And it's half of Newtown Township drains into Darby Creek, mostly east of Route 252. And we do have resident volunteers who help with this monitoring. It's citizen science, volunteer-based. And residents who live in the Darby Creek watershed and want to check the water quality of their local stream and see these water monitoring results can click on the link in the agenda.
That's awesome. Okay, we'll stay on top of that. We gotta watch our time here. We're going into new business. Cindy, if you can be really brief on this,
Yeah.
this is biodiversity and habitat management.
Sure. Something that came to my attention when I was actually other times and reviewing the development at 4605 Westchester Pike is the fact that in Article 5, the plan and planting requirements, section 104.13, it has lists of species that are actually presented as being recommended by the township for planting. And that part of the code was passed in 1992. And Steve, it's woefully out of date. There are many plants on the recommended list, which are now actually invasive and are
not
on the
even allowed
state
to be sold in
invasive
the state of
plant list.
Pennsylvania.
Some of the plants on our recommended list are not even allowed to be sold anymore. And in addition, some of those plants are not surviving as well because of climate change. So I would just suggest that it would be prudent to update that list and bring our code into alignment with the state invasive plant lists.
Which was
And then
developed
also,
in 23, right?
yeah, well, and it's
Very soon.
updated,
Annually?
very often. And also, I also noticed that in the arborist report for the land development plan that we reviewed, the species list in one part of the code, the new tree code, does not align with this part I'm referring to. So there's internal misalignment.
Yeah. And the reason being about the Callery Pear of Bradford Pear, which is all along Westchester Pike in front of this potential development down there. The concern is they usually last 20 to 25 years. Those trees are now 20 plus years. And this is when they break and they could become a potential hazard for the pike. So eventually, maybe the applicant can consider removing some of them and start a replenishing process with a non-invasive tree, which would be helpful.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
I wanted to mention that residents who would like to learn about invasive plants would be encouraged to know that the state feels so strongly about this, that they are offering free trees to residents that remove invasive trees, and interested people can click the link in the agenda to learn more.
Now,
That's great.
that location is in Darby. There's 4 locations in the state of Pennsylvania. Darby sold out within 3 days, so that location is now filled. But they've seen that there's a lot of interest in removing these invasives because of what it does to the overall community. Item number 9.2, excuse me, guys, but I'm sorry, we're in a meeting right now. At 9.2, Brookside Park, riparian buffer management. Cindy, let's go into this real quickly.
This, Steve, maybe we could follow up on our committee of committees meeting, but I noticed that, in the tree tubes of the riparian buffer planting that we did a couple years ago, those trees really need some maintenance, whether it's replenishing the mulch around them or pulling invasives out of the tubes. And I just wanted to inquire as to like who's managing that. Wade said he's been doing a lot of it himself personally, and he's fallen behind because of his health issues. I think that's admirable of him, but I'm like, Wade, don't try to do this all yourself. Let us know if we can come alongside you and maybe make suggestions for recruiting corporate volunteers through CRC, or maybe high school, honors programs to get a group of people out there. So I just kind of wanted to float that issue of
Sure.
like
Yeah, and we
coming up with a plan for that.
Or just send me I'm happy to add that to our agenda.
Yeah, and also make sure that we bring in George and his,
Of
of course,
Yeah, yeah.
all right. Item number 9.3, update and possible discussion on the paving of the township walking trails. This is just a general floating idea. This idea came up. There is not in any way. Cindy, what do you want to say
Well,
about this?
I just heard some inquiries about this, and if the township or the board has an appetite for this, just a reminder that we're here as a resource. That's one of our charters through our state mandate, is to provide information about topics that can help
Mhm.
the board make any relevant decisions. So we're here, we're willing to partner with Trails and Greenways and be a resource as that issue is possibly considered.
And also.
I will tell you, just so you know, we are gonna do some paving on the back trail behind where the field is right
Gable
now.
Park, yeah.
Gable Park, because we
The water
can't,
issue.
we gotta get the stones. We can't let all those stones keep going into the field. It's
The new
it's
fi- the
the
new
new
turf
field.
field.
Okay.
So we're gonna do some back there.
So
and-
Steve,
and
I just
alongside.
might suggest there are
Grids.
readily available trail design guidelines
Uh-huh.
that even when you just asphalting, like the current slope and everything the way it is, might not be the optimal
Sure.
solution. So
And also Steve,
something to think about. And
as
again,
part of We
we're
Can
looking
Serve
at that.
PA, remember, we get access to all of those resources
Sure.
when they provide. So if you need anything, always, we are
Yeah.
here and willing to.
I looked and I'm glad you mentioned that, Sheila, because We Can Serve PA has a wealth of information about trail
And they
design.
provide us with a lot of backside information too, which is very helpful. All right, item number 9.4. I'm sorry to rush it through here, guys, but we've got
Yeah.
2 minutes here. All right.
Yep. So we put a lot of work into maintaining the rain gardens, and I'm looking for ways to get more people there. And I've started a dialogue with Trails and Greenways and the Newtown Public Library. I'm working with Terry Morrison. She changes her name.
Yeah, McCarthy.
McCarthy.
McCarthy, yeah.
Who is has contacts at Trails and Greenways, on the board of the public library. And so we've started conversations about trying to do some events and a walk that might involve the library and getting people here. And they've been very supportive of that.
Awesome. All right, so again, that's something we want to work together on. I'm going to hold 9.5 because I want to get into old business and then we'll come back to it. Update and discussion on Sustainable Newtown Square Green Business Coalition. The great news is Dunwoody Village has so generously provided us with not only the facilities and everything that they did. We only had to spend $441 for that, which was incredible. They covered public relations, the facilities, the multimedia, the park. I mean, an incredible opportunity, and we're so grateful for that. But, and they also love all of we've done in this. We're going to work with them, Steve, when we're dropping the public relations together, once we put the commercial out. So we'll do that. In addition, because Shoemaker Films did that, I'm gonna send in a receipt for them to get a gift in kind donation because they gave that to us for free. So we are below budget on that. We saved money on that. But the best news of all, for March of 2026, we've discussed and interviewed, and we were looking at potential facilities that would be a good fit for us. And we have selected Garrett Williamson will be the host for our 20s. They are over the moon. Not only is a phenomenal foundation, the school and the farm, and guess who we have already booked one of our speakers? Mike McGraw.
I said it, I said
So
it.
we are so excited but let me tell you, Garrett Williamson is very excited. They're very honored for the prestige of being submitted with this opportunity. We're under planning. We're actually meeting this thing. And the reason being is we need to coordinate with their schedule because they have the school there. They have to make sure, school days and all that. For us, we looked at tour of the grounds where we're doing everything. So great news and we're all excited. On the EAC, we've got a lot of things going on. Friday, May 9th, the EAC and the Birdtown will be at the Food and Makers Markets. We're doing community outreach table. Janet and I will be there, which is awesome. Saturday, marked May 10th. Janet will be doing the bird walk and Cindy and I will there, registration link. Janet, you want to mention anything else about bird walk there?
I'm really happy that we have two really good birders to help us. And we may have three because Bill Whitmere, who's our second birder, his wife is also a birder. So
Awesome.
I met
And-
with him last night at a meeting. And I asked if Bonnie was going to come along, so.
Good.
hopefully she-
So from residents that are watching, the registration link is on our agenda. In addition, the township have shared it out on their social media pages and we have shared it out for the community pages. On Saturday, May 17th, we have a native plant swap and make a container pollinator garden with the Birdtown and Historical Society at the Paper House from 12 to 4. Janet.
Yes, that's working with Kathy. Kathy is going to provide the plants that we give away, the native plants that we give away. So that charge will not be through the EAC.
Yes, it's 20, that's something for the Historical Society. But
Right.
what's important is you're getting people out, you're providing them with an opportunity to learn about native plants, you're giving them a plant swap, so there's a lot to that. And
And Kathy wants a table there about composting as well.
yes,
Right, so I do mother compost and I just picked up 2 bags of compost. So we can show people that
All
this
right.
stuff is really good.
I am planning to be there. Anyone else going to be able to help Janet and I out at that event? If you can pop by, please let us know, and we're going to be working on that. On Sunday, May 18th, the EAC will be at the Circle at sundown. The EAC will have a table. Steve, if any other committees like Shade Tree, I think none of them have responded back if they wanted a table. If they want to partner with our table, we're more than willing to share. If somebody, that's in line with our philosophy, Birdtown and EAC will be there, but, let them know. Perfect. All right. All right. So then, the item that I alluded to was the main e-newsletter content. So Dave, I want something really phenomenal from you.
Come back, yeah.
I want something, okay, May, let's think of what we can do. I want something out of it, like,
I don't know.
You
April
better
showers,
shop.
spring Mayflowers, maybe something.
we just did it. And when is the e-newsletter for April being disseminated?
Probably pretty soon.
It should have been everything. We had to have everything.
I would
on Monday.
think, I don't, it may even be in my inbox now to review and
Okay,
say it
it's
can
probably
go.
gonna out tomorrow, because that's
So
what you could do.
I was gonna say,
Well,
probably
I'll-
supposed to go out tomorrow. I just probably haven't had a chance to see my inbox yet today.
I'll
So
find something.
Okay, all right. Cindy, you're off this month, and Janet, you want to give us some things, because we're probably gonna be right around our deadline for the event will be May 11th. It's supposed to go to print quote on May 13th.
So just so you know,
Unfortunately, not gonna-
my goal is, because I know Trails and Greenways wants to do a survey, we're gonna be using that event, the Circle Sundown event, to help push the survey.
Okay,
So my goal will be that the newsletter will go out the Friday before, letting people know about the survey, but also about the event.
all right, awesome.
So therefore, what's the date of submission?
Okay, so for our next EAC meeting will be on Thursday, May 15th. I will need any EAC agenda items by Sunday, May 4th at 8 a.m. And our next e-newsletter will be due items will be due on Sunday, May 11th at 8 a.m. as well. I will give you an email following that,
Okay.
but, Janet, I want to see what we could do. This is an opportunity if we want to, we played out some things with native plants. We've talked with things. Cindy, you were going to think about that BPA for the water. You want to take a note at that one? Remember you were talking
Yeah.
about?
Let me think.
Yeah.
think that's the
I'll
most
I need-
find something.
I need something too, and I need something with some
I think-
bedazzle,
I think plastic.
plastic
because
match.
people will
All right.
do it.
All right. So I think we've got a lot of great news. I think we've got a lot of wonderful things happening, and I think it's important that we take the time to appreciate all the EAC